My name is Theine Pledl. I'm an attorney in Milwaukee, and I represent people with disabilities and their families in all types of legal issues. Some examples would be special education and elder law issues. Getting long-term care services for clients with developmental, physical, and mental disabilities all over Wisconsin has been one of the most difficult issues during the 30 years that I've been doing this. We once had long waiting lists for services in most counties, and we still have long waiting lists in many counties. The family care system has the potential to end those waiting lists and provide really essential services to some of our most deserving citizens. In order to do that, we have to make it work properly. The reason for this video is that members and their families need to know how to ask for services, get those essential services, and assert their legal rights if necessary. Family care has been adding Wisconsin counties one by one since 2000, and new ones are being added all the time. In order to really talk about people's rights in family care, first we have to understand how family care works in the first place. The first thing we need to do is understand managed care. Under a managed care system, a managed care organization receives a certain amount every month to take care of each person that it's responsible for. And in the case of family care, the state pays each one of the managed care organizations a rate of from $2,700 to $3,500 per person, depending on the area of the state. So, just as an example, if I wanted to start an MCO, I would go to the Wisconsin Department of Health, I would explain to them what counties I intended to serve, and they would figure out the monthly rate. And so let's say that was $3,000 per person, just as an example. And if I had 1,000 members in my managed care organization, I would get $3 million per month. And then I would start to pay for home health, residential services, day services, work services, and everything else for those 1,000 people. There are several problems. The first thing is that the Theine Pledl MCO doesn't actually get $3,000 per month to actually use on services. Each MCO that we have right now has a lot of staff and overhead that takes almost 20% out of that state payment. So I got $3 million from the state, and I'm down to less than $2.5 million per month. And so a lot of it gets used up before we ever get to buying services. And so I have an average of $2,400 per person, and that gets us to the next problem. That is an average amount. Lots of people cost more than $2,400 per month to serve, so I have to have a lot of people who cost less than that if I'm going to have some people who cost, say, $5,000 a month or even $10,000 a month, and that's not unusual for people with disabilities who have a lot of medical or behavioral needs. Now, the final problem is that the whole system depends on whether the state set the rate properly in the first place, and that is a pretty big question mark. Just about every MCO has fought with the state about the size of the monthly member payment ever since the beginning of family care. I was the lawyer for a group of clients that sued the Milwaukee County Managed Care Organization several years ago. The problem was that the state rate wasn't enough, and residential providers were not being paid enough to keep clients, so clients were worried that they were going to be asked to leave their group homes and other residential places. So whenever I hear that an MCO is talking about cutting services or actually cutting services, I worry about whether the monthly rate is high enough to actually provide enough services. Now, before we move on to several other issues, I do want to say that despite all its problems, I really believe we have to commit ourselves to making family care work. During the 30 years that I have talked to families who are on those waiting lists, people just sitting at home, not getting services that they need, that was a terrible situation, and it still is a terrible situation for a lot of Wisconsin residents. So we'll be talking about how to make family care work better, and we have to make it work better because it's certainly better than what we had before.